First of all, we're excited about starting the 2011 season as a football program. It's been a long 6 months, and I know our players as well as our coaching staff are eager to get started with fall camp tomorrow, starting with meetings and then out on the field on Thursday. We've been much talked about finishing up 2 tough years where we feel we've navigated Lobo football through probably the toughest stretch it's ever been through. But we come out of it feeling very confident that year 3 is the year for us in which we take that big step. Right now, anything less, and I've said it at the end of last season, anything less than a bowl game is unacceptable. And as the leader of the program, I set that as our standards, and then anything beyond that is icing on the cake. My sense of confidence comes from knowing the talent, which in my opinion is the best team. This is our best team that we've had during my tenure. We've been able to create some depth through the recruiting process. I feel like part of the adversity and things that we've gone through as a program have brought us really closer together. I finally feel like it's one team, which is my team. And when I say that, I mean it from the standpoint that I've got 3 recruiting classes under my belt where 3/4 of the players are guys that our staff have felt have the ability to help us. And then the other quarter of our team is a group of guys that have bought in everything that we've asked of them. We've had them for 3 years in our program and our systems, and they're well aware of what the standards are. With that being said, I really feel comfortable and confident to say that this team is ready to go out. We got a big-time home opener against Colorado State, which is typically a little unusual to open up with a conference opener. But the bright side of it for us is it's the first time in my tenure that we've been able to open a season with a home game. And I know our players are excited about it, and we're very hopeful that the Lobo Nation comes out. Would like to see a sellout crowd there to be that 12th man to help cheer us on to victory. With that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Heading into camp, what's the help of BR?
Right now, BR is probably around 85–90%. I think that we have physicals tomorrow where I think he'll have a chance to see the doctors, and it's my expectation that the doctor will approve him and clear him for contact.
Where's the area where you are most concerned as far as position-wise?
Well, probably the big area for us always is up front. I think the depth on the offensive line, we have some really quality players, but that's the one position where I think that in a perfect world, you'd like to have 18 scholarship bodies to get you through a year, and we're sitting at right around 14. So that's the area for us where we need to make sure that we stay healthy and we try to get everything we can out of that unit.
Do you expect any changes schematically in year 3, something that you didn't do in year 1 or 2 that you're in one way or
I mean, there's always tweaking. I mean, that's what, you use the off season to evaluate things that you've done well and things that you need to improve on. And obviously with the influx of new coaches in our program, they all come from programs where they've had some success. Offensively, adding guys like Hud and Coach White, they both were coordinators in the spread systems that were very similar to us. There's some things obviously that they've done that they had success with that we may add to our package. The base of what we do on offense, defense, and special teams won't change from year in and year out. We may add to them and tweak them to make them better.
With Dylan being like the only returning starter, how much will he be relied on to like be a leader, try to get things going on offense?
Well, Van, it's ironic that we've had 4 new starters each year. My first 2 years on the offensive line. Year 1, we graduated 4 starters. Year 2, we graduated 4 starters. And Dylan's probably the most versatile lineman we have in our program. He's a young guy that we've placed a lot of pressure and onus on being a leader for the guys up front, because it starts and ends with the guys up front, whether it's the O-line or the D-line. And having a guy like Dylan who's been in our system now going on 3 years. Last year he was thrown to the wolves per se, in that he may not physically have been as ready, but I think the experience he's gained from being out there and actually having 12 games under his belt will be that much more beneficial for him this season.
Going down to Ruidoso, what do you get most out of taking camp somewhere else?
The team building aspect of it. It's not that you can't do it here, but it really eliminates the distractions. If the guys are from here and staying back and forth at a hotel and all the logistics of trying to run a camp the way we've had to run it, with not being able to be on campus and utilizing the local hotels. But to me, it's always been my opinion that when you go away to camp, that team camaraderie, that team building aspect, this is the one opportunity we have throughout the course of a season to where it's football 24/7. They have no classes, they have no other obligations, and so for us it gives us 2 weeks of football to really put the focus and energy on getting better as a program.
Are you planning on any redshirting any of the quarterbacks, or keeping, since you have some young ones there too, or are you going to keep them all open just because?
It's always my opinion with any player in our program, Van, that they're going to come in with the mindset that we're going to play them. If they're ready to play and they can help us win, we're going to play them. If they're not ready and we don't feel they're in position to help us this year, then we make those decisions. But typically those aren't made until a week before the opener, when we kind of have that sit down with the players to say what their roles are at that point in time.
Do any of the quarterbacks, specifically Tarian or BR, have an advantage over the other, or upper hand?
No, I mean, both those guys have started games for us. Both those guys have taken a ton of reps. With T, he's been in the system now. This is his 4th time having it installed. Obviously, BR went in the last season as our starter. Due to injury, allowed the door to open for a guy like Tarian, who we thought did a great job prior to him going down. So it's a healthy competition, and it's great to have the depth to be able to have 2 players that both have the experience and both are capable of running our system.
After those 2, who comes to mind as far as being in the order of the depth chart? I know you don't have an order yet, but I'm just saying who's going to be available.
Well, we've got 5 quarterbacks now. We moved the Chaz Ray to quarterback just yesterday to create some depth for the position. The Chaz was a state champion quarterback there out of East St. Louis High. Last year, when we ran into some injury situations, he was the scout team quarterback. He can play some receiver, very versatile. He's well versed in the spread system. So we're going to give him the opportunity to be a quarterback and also to provide some depth at the position. You've got Dustin Walton, who we were fortunate that he came in January, was able to get a spring ball under his belt, give him a little grasp of the system. And then Kevin Chavez, the walk-on from Santa Fe, who is out of baseball now, and again, provides some depth for us at the quarterback position.
Having Lamar as a weapon now officially for this year, what do you anticipate from him, and do you think there'll be any initial roster wear to kind of take off as he gets his feet wet?
No, I think the best thing that happened for Lamar is that he came in the spring after his Rose Bowl game, and that gave him a full year and a half in our systems, as far as he went through 2 spring practices now with us, as well as a fall camp. So this starts really his 4th installation of our system. So, I don't anticipate any rust in terms of knowing what to do because of his abilities or his potential. I think that he gives us a nice weapon offensively. Knowing his background, he's a guy that has the ability to run with the ball, catch it, also a threat in the return game. And so it's always been my thought that you take a player, find out what his strengths are, and find ways to get him involved in your system. And obviously he gives us a lot of different venues and ways to get him the football.
Will he and Dion both be returners?
We've got a ton of returners this year, fortunately. Last year it was open tryouts for who could return punts for us, and that's not something that I feel good about having to go through last season. But, with the influx of the new kids that we brought in, as well as some of the transfers that didn't have opportunities to play last year, we've got a ton of guys that have skill sets in catching punts and kickoffs, and also have tremendous big play potentials back there. So, again, the depth that we've created through recruiting and through bringing in some players have really, or you'll really see the benefit mostly on some special teams.
During the offseason, you had the Deshaun incident. What was your reaction when you first heard about it, and will there be any sort of punishment or anything that came along with the incident?
Well, I mean, number one, you're always disappointed when any player is arrested. That was a unique situation. It's always been my opinion, JP, that I handle discipline like I do handling my kids. You can't kind of have a across-the-board way of disciplining. You've got to gather information and then make some decisions. I think the way it's played out, obviously Deshaun is embarrassed as well as we are that the notoriety that came from the incident. But I think that it's taken care of itself. And as of right now, there will be no further discipline.
How's he doing after all this?
You know what? That's the tough part, Van, and you know, I don't like to talk personnel or talk, but it affected him, and I've had to spend some time with Deshaun and working him through it. To be judged, an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid to be judged by, I mean, basically a national media, to make decisions based on what they hear and say, you know, I find it a little unfair. I feel I'm a little more equipped as a head coach to deal with being judged, but I'm very protective of my players, and obviously it was a tough time for Deshaun and his family, and you know, we've done some things within our program to give them some resources to work through the situation, but it hasn't been easy for the kid.
Kind of an unrelated note, during the off-season, lately, Alford's been making some headlines about not letting his players do Twitter.
You're going to go there, huh?
Well, what are your thoughts on, I mean, do you restrict your players? Do you not put any restrictions on them?
Glad you asked that question, JP. We have a, you know, I've always had a player policy manual, and one of the things that I've tried to do is, you know, obviously I think it's my role as a coach and as a parent to educate my players. Doesn't make it right or wrong. To ban Twitter for me, something that's hard to police. It's not something that I think, I don't have the resources. I don't like to have rules that you can't enforce. But what we're going to do is we're going to teach our players how to responsibly use social media, and that's one of the things we'll talk about when we meet tomorrow. And you know, my Twitter policy is this. I mean, anything related to football related or football family issues, we're not going to talk about on our Twitter pages. Most of our players have placed their Twitters and their social networks on private. But we're also going to teach them the social responsibility of how to properly use it. And instead of banning them, what we'll do is we'll teach them that, you know, and my rule will be based a pretty simple rule. If there's anything football family related on any of your social messaging or anything inappropriate, you're banned from using it for a year, that particular person. And so, you know, we'll try to teach the responsibility of how to use it by taking care of it on a case-by-case basis as opposed to an across-the-board deal. And that way we're trying to, again, you know, I think it's our role as coaches to be educators, and we've got to teach our players, you know, obviously when they graduate from here and they go get jobs, they're going to somehow be able to use it, but we need to use this as a teaching tool while they're here to teach them how to responsibly use it.
That answer is way too long for 140 characters.
How did you size up the running back situation heading into camp?
Well, you know, obviously we got two players that have experience of playing in the backfield, in Casey Carrier and James Wright. And James Wright has been the one guy that we all I've answered a lot of questions about James because he has a tremendous amount of potential. I'm hoping with James matriculating into his senior year that a sense of urgency comes on James. And from what I understand and having been able to see how the voluntary workouts have gone, from what I hear, James has really stepped it up from a conditioning standpoint, the mental toughness of going through tough workouts, and you know, I'm very hopeful that those things lend themselves to a big season out of James Wright. With Casey Carrier, I think that you'll continue to see Casey improve. Last year, he kind of took the reins there as our starter, finished the year, did a tremendous job, and the biggest thing I see out of Casey right now is just a tremendous confidence, as well as I'm starting to see some leadership out of him.
What about you expect to see any, you know, any immediate impact on him because of his size and how he's kind of a bruiser at the back?
Well, I hope so. I mean, like I said, anybody that we've brought in, we're bringing in with the expectation to play now, and then we've got to get through what I hope is going to be a physical training camp, see how quickly guys can pick things up, and if we feel they have a role in helping us win, then we're going to play them. So whether it's Crusoe or any of the freshmen or any of the newcomers we've signed, we're bringing them in with the mindset that they're coming in to play and compete for playing time.
Coach, speaking of the physical training camp, we've heard all the discussions about the NFL and the two-a-days and keeping the contact on a real medium to low basis on the second practice. Are you being sensitive about that with the physical training camp? You've really been emphasizing, you've got the depth, but trying to be careful that it doesn't, hurt players going into the regular season. Is that a concern and something you're paying attention to?
I mean, obviously you pay attention to player safety. I think that's important. And if you look at how we've practiced the last 2 years of me as a head coach, we only really put pads on 2 days, Tuesday, Wednesdays. So we've been doing that for quite some time. As far as the physicality of how we're going to be in training camp, we've got rules in place that dictate how much contact, how much tackle to the ground we can have. And I will promise you this, every opportunity that we can tackle to the ground, we're going to do it. I just think that's the only way you get better. That's the only way you get physical. But when we're not allowed to, we're going to be very smart in how we stay up and stay off of guys to ensure that we don't get those injuries that tend to happen when you don't tackle, with guys being sloppy in their technique. So there'll be a greater emphasis on us, not necessarily the days when we do tackle, but the days when we don't have the full tackle to the ground and we're doing what we call thud or even a tag-off situation to ensure that our guys are under control and making sure that we keep ourselves up and stay healthy.
And on tackling and just other statistics, what's been like the primary statistic that you've been focusing on changing with spring practices and going into this season to, you know, not repeat 09 and 2010?
Well, it starts with turnover margin. That's one of the, you know, it sounds like coach speak, but it boils down to not turning the football over and creating turnovers on the defensive side of the ball. You know, both our coordinators understand the emphasis that need to be made to ensure that both sides are doing and keeping up with their responsibilities of the turnover margin. And I think if we can just get better there, then you'll see the strides and you'll see the wins come.
Do you like starting with a conference opponent in week 1?
No, but I like starting playing at home as opposed to College Station in Eugene, Oregon. It's a great opportunity for our fans to come out, get a chance to see the guys, to see the improvement. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of unknown about this team, and mainly due to the influx of transfers as well as the recruiting classes that we've had. You know, we've played a lot of young guys, but we also have had some guys that haven't played around here that, you know, our fans haven't been able to see play, nor our opponents. And, you know, I think that unknown is something that's kind of intriguing, and hopefully our fans will come out on September 3rd at 4 o'clock to see us take on Colorado State.
Could you talk about your defensive line, how you feel like what an upgrade it is?
Right. Well, I think the biggest thing is that we've got experience. You know, last year a guy like Ugo Uzodinma started, but really that was his first time playing football in 3 years. You know, he redshirted at Illinois, came here, had to sit out a year, and then last year thrown to the Wolves. And being coached by a guy like Reuben Carter, you expect his progress to improve. Reggie Ellis was the same way. He'd come back from a knee injury in high school, redshirted a year, sat out a year. So they were like playing freshmen in terms of their game experience. Then you throw a guy in like a Rod Davis and Brett Kennedy, who's been around here a long time. And, you know, I think we've got some good depth inside that allows us to kind of rotate some guys through. You know, at the defensive end position, I think the best move we made was moving Joe Harris down to defensive end. He gives us a pass rusher on the edge that was very productive for us in spring, and having an experienced guy like J-Mark coming back for you know, his senior year, we're hopeful that his ability matches his potential and we can get something out of him this year with pass rush and playing the run physical. And then you've got some you know, junior college player like Fatu Ulale who's come in, and he's got a swing guy that can play inside or out. I like the depth we've created, and we'll do some things and be creative with finding other ways to get pass rushers down and to put a pressure on the quarterback.
What about your corners?
Well, there's depth there. You know, last year we basically played with 3 corners, and then when one of them kind of went down, we had 2 corners for the whole year. You know, Hooks and Mills, and, you know, with McPherson moving over to wide receiver, we went to the junior college ranks, and we bring in a guy like Julian Lewis who has great size. And again, from what I hear, in reference to his voluntary workouts this summer, a lot of the guys on the team feel he has the ability to come in and help us. We signed a JUCO corner in Destry Berry, who we expect, having gone through spring ball, we'll see him progress. We got a couple talented freshmen that we brought in, so that's the one position that I really feel, and that's the defensive backfield as a whole, where we have created some depth and we've upgraded the skill and the talent to where you may see some different guys out there playing for us, and it's going to be based on the competition of summer camp.
Couple more. Heading into the season, obviously some of the players get a lot of hype with due, Carmen Messina and Lucas Reed and that sort of stuff. Is there a player in your mind heading into this year that, come the end of the season, everyone in this conference is going to know about? He's really going to surprise people at any positions.
You have to ask me that question in 2 weeks. I promise I'll answer it.
Mike, you talked about the talent being at an all-time high. Is the bonding, the brotherhood at an all-time high, and how important is that for you?
Well, to me, that's going to be the key ingredient, Richard. You know, it's great to have the assembly of talent, but it's how quickly they come together. And, you know, it sounds touchy-feely when you talk about trust and love, but that's something that I think is going to be really important, and it's something that we hope to build and come out of training camp with. I know from what I hear, the guys did a lot of things this summer together. They've been accountable to each other. They've made a commitment. And the whole key to this thing for us this year, in my opinion, is the trust factor. And I feel that when I talk about it being my team, I speak in terms of, there's a trust factor between me to the players, players to us as coaches, player to player, and that's the culture that you want to have. And typically when you have that type of culture, the success comes. And I really feel our players have embraced that trust factor and also understand for us to be successful, we've got to be able to count on the guy next to us, that he has our back, that he's going to do the things that he needs to do to win ball games. And I feel like that'll come.
Anything else?
Coach, sorry if you already addressed this, but could you just talk a little bit about your expectations coming into the season?
Well, I mean, I think it starts and ends with, and as I said it before, that, going to a bowl game is the expectation this season, and when you enter year 3, I think that's a very reasonable expectation. It's one that the program should be in line to do those types of things. This is the one year where I feel like we've assembled the team, the talent. We've got the culture that you need to do it, and our players believe in it. We believe in it as a staff, and come December, we want to send our seniors out going to a bowl game and with a winning season.